Okay, welcome back to the shop. Sorry we're a day late on this video upload, but hopefully you'll find it informative. This is a follow-up to our GPS motorcycle series. This is part 2. We'll also be doing subsequent videos that cover Garmin Basecamp and also how to find routes and tracks online, download those, and load them onto your unit. We'll go through today, once they're on the unit, how you can then use those on the device itself. So today is focused purely on the device itself, and this is going to be predominantly for the Garmin 600 series. I do have a friend that has a Zumo, and so if need be, if you guys are interested, let me know in the comments below, and I can borrow that unit to kind of walk you guys through similar features on that type of a GPS unit. Be sure to click the subscribe button down below. Be sure to click the bell notification so you get notified as the subsequent videos get uploaded. And as always, if you enjoy this video, please hit that thumbs up button and be sure to share this on social media or any other place where you have people interested in riding or GPS units overall. So let's get started. One of the key features that I really like about the 600 series is the fact that you can set up multiple profiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by configuring this device to have a ADV motorcycle specific profile, and then obviously you can rinse and repeat those steps with some minor updates to make it a road motorcycle profile. But essentially what it's going to do is it's going to set all of your routing preferences, the map display, all those type of things, and keep them, and then you can jump back and forth between those different profiles. This is really helpful if you do want to or plan to use your Garmin unit on a boat or in your car or anywhere else. You can set up those profiles for those activities and they won't impact your motorcycle riding. So one of the first things you're going to want to do for a motorcycle is make sure that you have settings that will stop the display from rotating on you while you lean the motorcycle. But before we get into that, we want to make sure that when we apply that setting that it applies specifically to a profile that we're going to use for our ADV motorcycle. Then you can use another profile for like road motorcycling or any other activities that you might want to do. So we'll start by clicking this button here, going into the setup menu, and then if I scroll down, I'll see an option in here for profiles. I make that selection there, and then I say create new profile. Now when I do that, it's going to make the new profile from whatever profile I was already in. So the first part that I would recommend is make sure that you're in the automotive profile as your starting point. It doesn't matter though, because if you make a mistake, you can always delete the profile, start over, change profiles, whatever you need to do there. When I do this, it's going to tell me that a new profile is created. And now if I scroll to the bottom of the screen, I'm going to see this profile 9. It just auto names it, but then you can touch it and then click on edit name. And so for this one here, I'm actually going to call it YouTube for this tutorial. And then click the OK button. So now you'll see that I have YouTube here, and it gives me the option to move it up and down. I'm not worried about that part. What I want to do though is exit out of all of this, go into my main settings, and do profile change. And then I'm just going to scroll down until I see that YouTube profile that we just created, and I'm going to make that selection there. Now that I have that selected, all of the subsequent settings changes that I'm going to make right now to map setup, which map selections, routing preferences are specific to this profile. And then if I want to modify them, I can copy that to another profile and make additional changes, but again, they'll save in the respective profiles. So one of the first things that we're going to want to do is go back into our setup, and we're going to want to go into the routing option. And so you notice it has an activity, and the activity says direct routing. That's if you're going to use this for hiking or something like that. It has automobile driving, motorcycle driving, cycling, tour cycling. These all contain how the unit itself does a route from point A to point B when you want to get somewhere. We're going to start with the motorcycle driving because I know that profile is one that Garmin loads, and what it does is it tries to find some curvy roads for you. So we'll use that as our starting point, but then it still doesn't have all of the settings that I want for my ADV motorcycle because it's going to have road avoidances for gravel roads, and obviously I would prefer gravel roads. So now that we're in the activity of motorcycle driving, we can go into the advanced setup, and now we have select items to avoid. I don't mind U-turns, so I'm going to uncheck that. Unchecking it means I don't want to avoid it. But then I'm going to avoid toll roads, interstate highways, major highways. I'm going to touch unpaved roads so that the green check mark disappears, because I don't want it to avoid unpaved roads. In fact, I would prefer it to take me down those. Same thing, I'm going to turn off, leave on carpool lanes. I don't want those. But then the last one is ferries. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that because I want it to take me on ferries. So the thing to note in here is that the green check mark means that you want to avoid it. So if you do want ferries and unpaved roads, you don't want a green check mark next to them. You want to remove the green check mark so that it's not part of your avoidance when you're doing your routing. Now that we have those set up, then we can also go back to this screen here where it says lock on road, and this one you can play around with. I prefer to go ahead and just leave it as yes, because most of the time I am on roads. But if you're truly off-road on a trail, you'll want to turn this to off or no, so that way it doesn't try to automatically get you back over to, the next gravel road over or whatever. And then off-route calculation for this ADV profile, I'm going to leave it to off. I don't want any recalculation at all. We'll get into that in the subsequent video when we talk about routes. But if I used a route instead of a track, this would keep it from trying to redirect me. In my ADV profile, I prefer to just leave it as a map with a line on the map, and then I follow it. I don't want the unit doing anything for me. Calculation method, you can leave that as minimize time. Again, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of routing in this profile because we're setting it up specifically for a scenario where we'd be loading a track. So that one doesn't really matter too much there. Then we're going to go back, and I'm just going to go into the map for a second, and you'll notice in here that I prefer to run it, and I think most people do, with the track up versus the north up. The track up is basically where the direction that you're heading, that's going to be the top of your GPS. So for me, that's much easier, and I think for most other people it is as well. Guidance text, when I'm doing tracks, again, I'm not looking for any turn left directions or anything like that, so I actually turn that to never. If you're going to be using it more like an automotive GPS, you would want to leave that on. Then for the dashboard, I'm going to go ahead and set this to small data fields, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But essentially what the small data fields does is on the right hand of the screen, you're going to have about 4 little options. They're pretty small and flexible. You can pick what you want to be displayed in there. That can be things like time of day. It can be average speed, moving speed, any of those type of things that you can set up in there. Guidance text, again, this unit doesn't have Bluetooth and I'm using a track, so I'm just going to say never on the guidance text. And then the map information, this is where you're going to make the selection for which maps. You're going to see that I have quite a few options available in here. That's based on the maps that I've purchased and loaded into this unit. Yours will look different. I don't typically recommend running the topo maps when you're trying to navigate this way, just because it's too much detail on the screen. But you can switch over those if you're stopping and trying to find a route or a track or something like that. So I've got the worldwide base map disabled, I've got the topo disabled, I've got City North America enabled because that's the predominant map with all the roads, and that's what I'm going to be navigating. I also have the 24K topography maps available. That's because I made that purchase and they show a great level of detail for ATV tracks and things like that. But again, in most scenarios, I'm not navigating those. So for now, I'm leaving that as disabled. If you're predominantly riding those types of environments, then you would want to enable that map so that it shows that detail on the GPS while you're riding along, and then subsequently disable the US City Navigator so that then it'll try to take you on routing down through ATV trails while you're out and trying to find a destination. With my map selections complete, I'm going to go back one more and just make sure that everything in here looks good. I'm going to change one more thing, which is the map speed, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change that to fast. And then I'm going to go back one more time because we're done with our routing avoidance, we're done with our map setup. And then the other thing is we can go into here to our display, and basically if you've got the GPS hardwired in your motorcycle, what you're going to want to do is on this backlit timeout, turn that all the way off so that it just says stays on. You've got the batteries, they'll run when the bike is off, and you've got the power going to the unit. It'll make it easier to read in bright sunlight. Again, that was a recommendation that I made in the last video. And then inside of here, this is the most important one that I referenced in the beginning of the video, which is the orientation lock. You can see right now it's set to auto mode. You do not want that because, again, that is the one where if you lean the motorcycle, it'll flip back and forth between portrait and landscape mode. So we're gonna go ahead and say lock landscape, but that's only because that's how I have it mounted on this particular motorcycle. If you have yours mounted in the portrait position, then obviously you would just pick the portrait option. The key thing is to make sure that you have it locked to one of those two and not set to the auto mode. Battery save, again, if you're hardwired in, you're gonna wanna leave that option off. As always, we appreciate you watching. Thanks everybody who's already subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click the subscribe button down below. Be sure you click the bell button. That way, as we release the subsequent videos in this GPS series, you'll get notified of those. And until next time, take care and ride safe.